Thank you very much. I'll have an executive order.
Mr. President, these are proposed executive orders approved by the Department of Justice.
Enforcing federal law with respect to the transnational criminal organization and preventing international trafficking. So accepted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Task Force on Crime Reduction and Public Safety. Jeff, what do you know about that? Jeff, what do you think about that? Preventing violence against federal, state, tribal, and local law enforcement officials. Very important. All very important. Thank you all very much. Jeff, I know you're going to do a fantastic job. Good luck. Thank you.
My great privilege on behalf of the President of the United States to administer to the oath of office. Please place your left hand on the Bible. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Jeff Sessions, do solemnly swear
I, Jeff Sessions, do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
that I take this obligation freely,
that I take this obligation freely,
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties
and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties
of the office upon which I am about to enter.
of the office upon which I am about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Mr. President, any reaction to Judge Gorsuch's comments about you, sir?
Well, thank you all. I know so many of you through reading and through business magazines, and you've done an amazing job. And I want to congratulate you, and I know you're under pressure from a lot of foreign elements and foreign carriers. I've been hearing that a little bit. At the same time, we want to make life good for them also. They come with big investments. In many cases, those investments are made by their governments, but they are still big investment. I'm thrilled to welcome the leaders of the airline industry to the White House. Your industry supports over 10 million well-paying U.S. jobs and creates almost $1 trillion in economic activity, which is really big stuff, really amazing. Last year, our airlines moved approximately 2 million people each day in our country, which is an incredible number of people, and they move them well, despite the bad equipment that the airports give you in many cases because they can't get approvals on anything, and we have a regulatory morass that's a disaster. And I can tell you that a lot of the new equipment that's ordered is obsolete the day they order it. And that's according to people that know, including my pilot. I have a pilot who's a real expert, and he said, sir, the equipment they're putting on is just the wrong stuff. So we'll talk about that. Because if we're going to modernize our systems, we should be using the right equipment. And I know Mr. Tilden is nodding. You know what I mean. I mean, it's one thing to order equipment, but let's order the right equipment. Probably the wrong equipment costs more. Probably buy the right equipment for less money. So we want to talk about that because my pilot, he's a smart guy and knows what's going on, said the government is using the wrong equipment and instituting a massive multi-billion-dollar project, but they're using the wrong type of equipment. So let's find out about that. We want the traveling public to have the greatest customer service with an absolute minimum of delays and with the greatest convenience, all at the lowest possible cost. We want to help you realize these goals, and we will indeed help you realize these goals. Airport's very important to me. Travel, very important to me. I mean, as an example, somebody was saying yesterday to me that you go to China, you go to Japan, they have fast trains all over the place. We don't have one. I don't want to compete with your business, but we don't have one fast train. And it's the same thing with our airports. Our airports used to be the best. Now they're at the bottom of the rung. We've spent $6 trillion, think of it, as of about 2 months ago, $6 trillion in the Middle East. We've got nothing. We've got nothing. We never even kept a small, just even a little tiny oil well, not one little oil. I said, keep the oil. But we spent right now $6 trillion in the Middle East. We have nothing. And we have an obsolete plane system, we have obsolete airports, we have obsolete trains, we have bad roads. But we're going to change all of that, folks. So you're going to be so happy with Trump. I think you already are. So we want to help you realize these goals by rolling back burdensome regulations, and you people are regulated probably as much as almost anybody, although I can think of a couple of industries that are even worse. Lowering the overall tax burden on American business is big league. That's coming along very well. We're way ahead of schedule, I believe, and we're going to be announcing something, I would say, over the next 2 or 3 weeks that will be phenomenal in terms of tax. And developing our aviation infrastructure. Again, I want to thank you all for being here. So I want this to be a meeting of substance. I want to be able to do things for you. The auto industry was in. They left, they said it was the best meeting they've ever had. I even took them into the Oval Office. The head of Ford, the head of General Motors, the head of Fiat, others, they never saw the Oval Office. I said, you mean they never took you in? It was, you know how far away it was from the room? 10 feet. It was 10 feet across the hallway. But they never got taken in. I took them in. The auto companies are going to be making massive investments in Michigan and Ohio and Pennsylvania. A lot of the places where jobs have left. So we're really happy about that. They've been great. Ford is going to build as you know, they canceled a big plant in a certain place. I won't say where. A $2 billion plant, and they're building it in the United States, and they're expanding greatly. General Motors, the same thing. They've been great. They've been great. And I think they'll continue to be great. But we're also going to be great to them. We're going to get rid of a lot of unnecessary regulation, and we're going to make their life a lot easier. They're going to employ a lot more people. So it's working. A lot of businesses are rushing in. They're coming in big league.
Is very linear.
He tweeted this morning, but before we read the tweet, I just want to tell the folks at home a little background on this. You have Senator Richard Blumenthal, and he was having a private conversation with Judge Neil Gorsuch, and he says that Neil Gorsuch told him that he was disheartened by the president's comments about the judges.
And demoralized, and then Richard Blumenthal described it as Trump's abhorrent comments. And then abhorrent and demoralizing and disheartening got part of the mix, but in fact, Mr. Gorsuch never mentioned abhorrent. And
okay,
so then your boss today tweeted
exactly,
this.
And this is what he tweeted out. He said, Senator Richard Blumenthal, who never fought in Vietnam when he said for years that he had, major lie, now misrepresents what Judge Gorsuch told him. So what is he saying there at the White House about this?
Well, he's saying that the judge has been misrepresented, some of his comments have been distorted, but also probably that you don't reveal a private conversation, even if it means you could be on cable TV 24/7. And I think this is the president's way of reminding everybody, in his view anyway, that Senator Blumenthal has had a credibility problem of his own. We know that gets glossed over. I remember a couple of years ago when he was running for re-election. He's done that many times. He's been a lifelong politician, frankly, and a very wealthy man, Senator Blumenthal. He is somebody who said he fought in Vietnam, and he meant to say he was enlisted during Vietnam. So it's just a matter of a word. That happens to some of us sometimes, but in the case of Senator Blumenthal, it didn't get that much coverage. So perhaps the president is trying to maybe make everybody see the credibility of Senator Blumenthal as well, as he's out there representing the judge's conversation. But look, I go back to one other thing. Two things. One is, remember during the confirmation hearings for our other still unconfirmed nominees, that the president said at some point that he's very comfortable with his nominees expressing their own points of view. He said that when these folks were being grilled by the Democratic senators who ended up voting against them anyway, for no good reason except politics. He said, I want them to express their own independent views. So the president is very comfortable with that. Number two, what about when President Obama tried to shame the Supreme Court in front of the world at the State of the Union address after the Citizens United decision? You had Justice Alito literally shaking his head because it was just such a shocking thing to have a sitting president with the Supreme Court right in front of him, scolding them for an opinion that they talk about not having an independent judiciary, talk about interfering in different branches of government. But this is the different standard because it's a different standard applied to us in the Trump administration. But I'm glad that he said that, and we have full faith and confidence in Judge Gorsuch. We know his academic credentials, his judicial qualifications. Of course not. The president is very fully confident in the nominee. By the way, those Democrats preening around about what Judge Gorsuch said, it really is beside the point. All they care about is who he is on Roe versus Wade. So I'm not even sure why they're raising this.
Just real quick before we talk about Ivanka and what she's going through now, I want to just ask you, did the president pick up the phone, or did the judge pick up the phone, or did they speak yesterday after Senator Blumenthal came out with his comments?
I'm not going to comment on that. I could just tell you that the president is fully confident in Judge Gorsuch. And he's fully confident. I mean, look at this. Look at this new polling data from Morning Consult. This is pretty cool. Look at on the blue is how much people support what the president is doing. Keystone XL, Affordable Care Act, sanctuary cities, 7 predominant countries from entering the U.S. I mean, this is what matters the most because America is paying attention to the way he's communicating and connecting with them on the substance.
Sure.
So
go to Politico. It's a Politico Morning Consult poll if you want to get the details on that.
And a Quinnipiac poll shows that 91% of Republicans love Donald Trump.
They do. Basically because he keeps his promises. Everybody's just shocked that a businessman is about accountability and deliver. But you asked about Ivanka. I visited with her yesterday. You know, this is a very successful businesswoman twice. Obviously, she's stepped away from it now, but in the past, she's helped to run her family's real estate empire. And on the side, she developed another fully unbelievably entrepreneurial, wildly successful business that bears her name. And I think she's gone from 800 stores to 1,000 stores or 1,000 places where you can buy. You can certainly buy her goods online. And she's just at a very good place. She's an incredibly confident, creative, talented woman who also supports her father's presidency and realizes that there are bigger issues that he's going to tackle. And if she decides, and it works for her family, she comes inside the White House here, she knows people like Dina Palomey will be working with her to help on women empowerment, women and girls. I do find it ironic that you've got some executives all over the internet bragging about what they've done to her and her line, and yet they're using the most prominent woman in Donald Trump's, most prominent, she's his daughter, and they're using her, who's been a champion for women empowerment, women in the workplace, to get to him. So I think people can see through that.
30
Go
seconds.
buy Ivanka's stuff is what I would tell you. I hate shopping. I'm going to go get some on myself today.
There is that hashtag buy Ivanka right now, but there is that hashtag grab your wallet. Is that behind some of this stuff?
Well, some of it is, and we know where that came from, and that's been a huge failure. Goodness, they had a whole election. They had the first female president, everybody thought, talking about that day and night. She had no message, no positive message. That was her message. That failed at the ballot box. And then they had a march saying the same thing the day after he was sworn in as president. They're welcome to march, but what's coming of it in terms of, commercial interest? It's a wonderful line. I own some of it. I'm going to give a free commercial here. Go buy it today, everybody. You can find it online.
All right. Kellyanne Conway from the briefing room. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right,
Okay.
10
We covered
minutes.
a lot of territory.
Yep, 10 minutes now before the top of the hour. We have